Welcome to the world's #1 fitness business podcast for health club owners, gym managers, and fitness entrepreneurs. As always, this will be a great show as we have another expert to help your fitness business and your career. We'd like to thank our premier sponsor, Active Management, for supporting us, and we highly recommend becoming a member of Active Management to strengthen your business in 2016. There are loads of resources members receive, so join the Active Tribe today at www.activemgmt.com.au. Now that's enough from me. Let's welcome the show's amazing host, Chantal. What's on this week's show?
Thanks, Harper, and welcome everyone to week 2 of our Women in Fitness month. This week, we have a doctor in the house. Dr. Sherry Pagato is a professor in the Department of Medicine at the University of Massachusetts Medical School, and she's the co-founder of the UMass Center for mHealth and Social Media. She's also a licensed clinical psychologist with expertise in behavioral counseling for obesity. During today's interview, we talk about the role social media can play in supporting your client's weight loss journey, and she tells us the biggest mistake that people make when trying to lose weight. We discuss some of the strategies for creating healthy habits with our clients. Plus, we talk about Sherry's online challenge, which is called Plank a Day. If you haven't heard of it, I think you're going to love it. Plus, later in the show, I chat to one of our listeners, Ben Ritchie from Genesis Fitness in Western Australia. And Ben tells us why podcasts have made his car a centre for learning. I absolutely love that. Before we get stuck into this week's main interview, I think you guys know that I'm always on the lookout for people to come onto the show. So if you are loving what you're hearing, and if you love podcasts, and if you fancy having your voice played out all across the globe, then I want to hear from you. Just head over to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and click on the contact button. Send me through your details and I will be in touch.
The Fitness Business Podcast is very appreciative of our podcast partners. Here's a quick word from one of our partners.
Tribe, if you haven't explored a functional training space for your gym, then now is the time. With Queenex Functional Training by Precor, there is a unit to fit every space. Plus, education is included to ensure that training is delivered with confidence. You need to jump online and check this out right now. Go to precor.com/fitness business podcast. This week's flashback show is show 36 with Sean Bester, called Essential Elements of Your Online Campaign in a Customer Journey, Part 2. You might remember last week's flashback was show 35 with Sean Bester. That was Part 1. So if you missed either of those shows, go back and check them out. That is show 35 and 36, and you can find them on iTunes at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. As I mentioned right at the very beginning of the show, Dr. Sherry Pagato is a professor and licensed clinical psychologist with expertise in behavioral counseling for obesity. Her research has been funded by the NIH for 13 years, and she has published 148 peer-reviewed papers on the science of health behavior. Her current research is examining how technology and social media can be leveraged for health promotion and for disease prevention. I started by asking Sherry to tell us about the day in a life of a clinical psychologist.
So I think a lot of times when you picture a psychologist, you're picturing them in an office and they have a couch and there's somebody laying on the couch talking about their inner child. That is not my life at all. I do have a couch, but it's in my living room, not in my office. I have a treadmill in my office. It's a treadmill desk actually. And so I'm a research psychologist, so I spend my time doing research. So I'm writing grants, writing papers, analyzing data, and it's behavioral research. So we're doing a lot of kind of measuring what people are doing, creating interventions to see how we can motivate people, how we can change their attitudes. And so we have a lab where we'll invite people in to participate in these interventions. We do a lot of the interventions online. So we'll create, private Facebook groups and practice different coaching styles and things like that. So it's probably not what you would imagine a psychologist doing, but we have all kinds of different roles. So it's fun because I get to enjoy the science side of it, but then because we do so many intervention studies, I get to engage kind of with the patient population as well. And those are the two pieces that I love the most. So on any given day, you'll probably find me either in front of my laptop, either working on our latest paper or maybe right there in the lab, talking with a group of people that have just joined one of our intervention studies.
I'm sure that's definitely different to what many of us imagined you might do. So, Sherry, you mentioned in there social media. Can you tell us more about the role that social media plays in your business?
Well, I think social support is so important when people are trying to make lifestyle changes. And sometimes, as this audience is probably already aware, sometimes they have that at home and sometimes they don't. So they may have a really supportive spouse or really supportive friends, but that's not always the case. And so for making these lifestyle changes, having kind of a community where they can find people who support them, people that they can relate to, in a place where they might get good, evidence-based advice about what to do, I think can be super important. And we're seeing, these sort of things sort of popping up organically on Facebook, on Twitter, all kinds of fitness communities that people are just sort of, developing for themselves. So I think there's a real space for trainers or anyone in the fitness industry to really kind of be leaders in those communities, creating their own communities as a place for people to gather and get that social support that they need, especially for those who might not have a really strong piece of that at home.
Is there any tips that you might give us for how we would, if we were to set up a social media group, for example, to support one of the programs or one of the fitness offerings that we have? Is there any kind of initial steps that you would suggest that we take in order to start that engagement with the people that are involved?
Sure. I would recommend, to kind of think about what sort of social media platforms are your clients using. So, the average adult is probably on Facebook. And so a private Facebook community where people can, join a group that, maybe the fitness professional is sort of moderating it and putting forth some content. But I don't think you have to spend a ton of time producing content. You can really just sort of be leading the conversations, asking people to, one of the things we do in our group, I have a Facebook group, have them kind of report their weight change each week or report their goals each week, really kind of getting them to sort of discuss what it is that they're doing, supporting each other and that kind of thing. So you're kind of like the band leader in some ways and keeping everybody engaged and connecting with each other. And we even see instances of people kind of getting together and working out together because they've met each other, in this Facebook page and don't live that far apart. And so some of that online behavior can transfer to offline, but it's also nice when people who live far away from each other find kindred spirits online in these groups and can connect with each other and feel a little bit less isolated. So I would definitely explore Facebook. If you have a particular clientele, maybe that you would want to lead in a group like that. Also, having a presence on Twitter can be helpful. It might be a little bit less intimate because it's so public. So I might sort of think of that as more sort of putting content out there rather than leading a group. But, you can create it according to which needs you have.
I love that. Now, talking about online and social media followings and communities, now you have on your website I'm going to call it #plank-a-day.
That's right.
And you've got something like over 11,000 people a part of it. So do you want to explain to everyone what is Plank-a-Day?
Absolutely. So this started actually a few years ago on accident. So it was really, I got on Twitter and I had a friend on Twitter and we were both trying to motivate each other to do more ab work because we were just really bad with core work and we could use trainers for this. And every time we would try something, we wouldn't really last very long with it. And so we thought, we got to start small. So let's just create a hashtag for each other and we'll just do one single plank a day because that's just basically how bad we are at this. We just have to do one small thing and then we'll try to build from there. And so we started tweeting this back and forth to each other. The idea is when you do your plank, you tweet it. And these people, a bunch of people started joining in. They're like, what are you doing? And we're like, well, we suck at abs, so we want to do one plank a day. You can join if you want. And before you know it, just hundreds and hundreds of people started hopping into this. And so when it was a small number of people, we would kind of police each other. So if you saw someone miss their plank, you'd tweet them and say, hey, are you shooting planks or you're shooting blanks? or something funny like that. And we would go crazy with the puns, and, it became kind of this funny thing. But then so many people were doing it, it got more than we could police. And so we hired what I'll call the Plank Police, which is on Twitter. It's an account on Twitter, and he will police you if you use the hashtag. So if you tweet plank a day twice, that means you're in, and you'll get a welcome message. But then if you miss 2 days in a row, the Plank Police is going to send you a tweet to kind of remind you to get back on track. And so and we have a leaderboard on my blog, and it just became this fun thing. And literally over time, thousands of people joined. And we started this, like I said, let's see, when was it? Back in 2011, and it's still going to this day. And around the holidays, we always have a challenge. So I will say, check us out. Check out the hashtag, because in December, we're having a holiday challenge to kind of get people back on the plank wagon.
I just like this
holiday belly bulge.
Sherry, I've got to ask you, are you still doing a plank a day?
I am. I'm definitely still doing it. And we've had times when we built it up to where we would get up to, I think my plank PR is 7 minutes and 30 seconds.
That's phenomenal.
I can't do that today, but now I feel like I need to work I kind of fell off the plank wagon for a little while, and I'm getting back on and going to try to build up again. But
I love it. There's a good challenge for all of our tribe. You need to go and check out Plank a Day and see how your planks are going. Maybe get clients involved. I think would be an awesome idea.
Yes.
Sounds really
People
good.
have a ball.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Sherry, when it comes to actually getting something like that started, I mean, as you said, like that was really just you and a friend kind of challenging each other. If one of our tribe wanted to do that and get their clients involved and actually set up like an online challenge and perhaps make it global, any advice for us on how to get the ball rolling on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we learned about Plank a Day, and we actually studied it after this. So as a researcher by heart, I was so blown away by what happened. We started surveying people, and we published a paper on Plank a Day, actually. But one of the things that we learned was that because it was so simple and doable for so many people, that we got a lot of engagement on it. There was literally, senior citizens joining Plank a Day, because anyone can do a Plank a Day, and it didn't necessarily say how long you needed to do it. So some people would start, at 20 seconds. And actually, we have a woman right now who is, an elderly woman, and she planks on a regular basis. So I think that the challenge is simple and doable for as most people possible. That's really important. Having a clear hashtag if you're doing something like this on Twitter. Sometimes when we have private groups, we'll even give kind of prizes for contests. So we might have something like one of our more recent contests was a sweaty selfie contest. So you just take a picture of yourself right after your workout, and then everyone votes or, hits the like button, and whoever gets the most likes. And it's usually the most heinous picture of all. It's not necessarily like the cutest girl or anything like that. It's the person who just looks like a wreck. They're the ones who win. So you really got to put an effort into just making the picture as, exhausted as possible. So kind of fun things like that. I think when it has a fun element, and I think with Plank a Day, the humor and the puns, and then people would be, racking their brains trying to think of another pun, leveraging holidays. We've also found we can get a lot of joiners if it's around the holidays. There are other hashtags that have people doing streaks of things. So you could do, a streak of some activity, and then have people post pictures. And I think the crazier, wackier it gets, the more engagement you get, because then people start to really get into it by posting pictures and things like that. So
I just love that. And I think that hopefully it's got a few people thinking about what kind of fun and engaging hashtags and activities they can come up with. I just love it. So Sherry, let's talk about when it comes to weight loss. I mean, you deal with this, all the time. What would you say that is the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to trying to lose weight?
I think when people are trying to lose weight, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is that they're searching for novelty. So they want to try something that might seem novel to them. So kind of the standard advice around, developing a healthy diet and a regular exercise plan, just so it doesn't sound sexy at all. And so they'll kind of get dragged into fad type of things because they think, oh, well, I've never heard of that. And I hear it's, I have a neighbor who really enjoyed, like, maybe it's a shake or something, or, some crazy diet. So they kind of get dragged away from doing what we know is healthy into something that is a little bit more gimmicky. I think that's one mistake that people make a lot, is kind of getting dragged away from the basics. Another mistake people make a lot, I think, is selecting lifestyle changes that aren't things that they would live with forever. So an extreme diet or an exercise plan that is just not sustainable. And so what'll happen is they'll do it for a little while, but then it's not something that they can keep up with. And so what I try to impress upon people is don't start anything you don't feel like this is something you could live with. And that's sort of the barometer of whether this is a good habit to choose. Is this something you could live with? So maybe if you decide, I think I'm going to try this fasting diet, I would only try that if that's something you really feel like you could see yourself doing long term, or if it's using some sort of shakes, or if it's using, some very intensive exercise plan. Is that something you could see yourself doing and building upon forever? Or is that kind of a 3-month thing, and then after that you wouldn't be able to sustain it? Because if it's not sustainable, then the weight loss won't be sustainable either. And I think that's a challenging thing, is that people want some quick results, and so we'll do extreme things, and then it's just really hard to persist with those things.
Tribe, Sherry's going to leave us with some quick tips on how we make exercise a habit. But before we do that, here's a quick message from one of our wonderful sponsors.
Hey, it's JT here from the Industry Leaders Roundtable. Hope you are loving this month with all our inspiring women. If you want to grow, strengthen, enhance, or hustle in 2017, run your business in agendas 2 and 3, like many of our women leaders that you've been listening to. What are agendas 2 and 3? Go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/roundtable for a free download.
Okay, let's get back in now, where Sherry's going to leave us with her top tips on making exercise a habit.
Yeah, so in terms of really creating that habit, I think one of the things that goes wrong with habits, starting a new habit of any kind, is that there's kind of no free space for it in your life. So if you want to do something new, you actually won't have time for it because you're busy. Your time's already accounted for. So creating a new habit means you're going to have to create a space for it. And so one tip would be to have a really specific plan about who are you going to exercise with? What are you going to do for exercise? Where are you going to exercise? When is that going to happen? Because that's sort of that space making, step is where is this going to live in my schedule? And I've got to pick somewhere that it can live forever. So really kind of opening up the calendar, sitting down and figuring out where is this going to be and what's my plan to make that happen. And so things are going to get bumped. So if I got to create an hour a day on a few days a week, things that I'm already doing are going to get bumped. So I'll need to make a plan for what to do about that. So if it means that I'm no longer going to be able to cook dinner on certain days, then I'll need to plan for, who's going to cook dinner? Like what's going to happen with dinner? Or if I'm going to wake up an hour earlier, I'll need to think through that. Will that be enough sleep for me? So what is the activity that's going to get bumped, and who's going to take that over? Do I need to delegate? What's going to happen with the time that is now being taken by exercise? So I think that's an extremely important first step in establishing a habit. A second thing I would suggest is getting support from people, whether it's friends or family, if you have ones that are supportive, or online, like we were talking about before, or some combination. So really not going it alone. And this is where the trainer becomes so important, because they're actually a key part of that support system, because they're informed support. So they're going to give good advice and be there to kind of provide that support role. But I think the trainer can really provide an opportunity to help the person build a bigger support network. So, who's in on this with you? And then the third thing I would say is really having people kind of anticipate what their obstacles are going to be. So what could go wrong? You said you want to wake up at 5 a.m. and exercise each day. Let's just sort of play through what could go wrong with that. Maybe it's that you a lot of times will end up sleeping through your alarm clock. Or maybe if you went to bed late a day before, you're not going to want to get up. So anticipating obstacles, I think, is really important. And then having kind of a plan B for when they occur. Because I think what a lot of times happens is people say, well, I intended to exercise, but this happened. And the things that happen aren't just completely random. It wasn't like I got hit by a bus. It was, something that happens a lot. Like I slept through my alarm, or work was really busy. So we have the opportunity to anticipate those things. It's not just things falling out of the sky. So taking the time to sort of think about what could possibly go wrong, and then what would I do if that happened? So if I slept through my alarm clock, which I'll admit I sometimes do, then my plan would be I'll exercise at 6 p.m. right after work. So then people kind of don't end up with plans falling through all the time. Because I hear that a lot from the patients that I work with. They'll say, well, I was going to do it this way and then it didn't work. And then you can see that it kind of didn't have a second thought about what they were going to do that day instead. It just sort of fell apart for the day. So kind of getting people to start thinking ahead about those challenges that could come up, and having that plan B, I think, is a really important thing to walk people through that process.
They are fantastic suggestions and really great practical tips that we can use straight away. Hey, Sherry, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. It's been so interesting talking about, fitness from a very different perspective to what we normally look at. And I think that we've been able to share some really good advice and some great takeaways with our tribe today. So I want to thank you so much for coming on as a guest on the Fitness Business Podcast.
Thank you so much.
Get ready for this week's bonus segment, your extra injection of information, education, and inspiration to strengthen your fitness business.
Hey Tribe, I'm here today with one of our very special guest listeners. It is Ben Ritchie. He's the Genesis Fitness Club's master franchisee for WA in Australia. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thanks, Chantal, for having me.
Now, tell us about your role in the industry.
Yeah, sure. I've been in the industry for about 11 years. Myself and my business partner own 3 Genesis Fitness Clubs in WA. They're large, very well appointed 24/7 facilities, which offer a full range of group fitness, personal training, small group and crèche facilities, plus a huge functional training areas.
Excellent. And listen, so we wanted to get you on the show to talk all about podcasts. Now, I know you're a bit of a fan of podcasts. What is it that you like about them?
Chantal, as we know, we're all stuck in traffic for so long these days, and it frustrates me greatly. Look, podcasts turn my car into a centre of learning, keeping my mind active, making sure I'm up to date and staying relevant with as much information as I can.
I love that, and I love the centre of learning. It's a mobile centre of learning, isn't it?
It is indeed, yeah.
Great place to learn. So listen, in regards to the Fitness Business Podcast in particular, do you want to maybe share with us a couple of ideas or insights that you've gotten from listening to the show?
Look, firstly, how good was Darren Shaw in episode 13?
Yeah.
He's such a cool, calm and considered guy. But when he spoke about avatars and the importance in marketing, it prompted us into action. These avatars are the basis of our marketing now, both for our club and small group program. And we make sure that we're switching between them to make sure we're targeting each one of them.
That's awesome. And I must admit, we have over time talked a lot now about avatars, but I think you're right. I think Darren was probably one of the earliest guests to really introduce that concept to us. And I'm so glad that you made use of that. And that was way back in show 13. So it was quite some time ago. What other takeaways have you gotten?
Look, I just loved hearing Adrian Antigua in episode 50, particularly when he spoke about small group programs. It was just really refreshing to hear someone who has developed hands-on learning and was able to pass these on. I love war stories for anybody who knows me, and he gave so much practical experience that we can apply to our business to make sure we don't make the same costly mistakes when it comes to change.
Yeah, Adrian was good because he was so honest, wasn't he? And he talked about the processes that they've gone through. He talked about having tribe team training as part of their club and how they managed that and how they implemented that. So definitely, if anyone missed that particular show, and putting small group training into their business is something that you're looking into, or if you want to really nail how you're doing it, then Show 50 is a really, really good one to check out. Great suggestion. And what was the last one, Ben?
Look, it's probably my favourite, Paul Bedford, in episode 3. I'm an absolute huge fan of Paul and his research, and always look to devour his content whenever I get the opportunity. Look, his constant message that he gives of getting the members started correctly, I think is essential for all fitness businesses. Look, we've used it all to evolve our customer service experience and also making sure we've got high quality interactions, and we're certainly seeing that as far as retention goes in our business.
Yeah, so Dr. Paul Bedford, also known as the retention guru, is just a wealth of information on everything retention. And that was way, way back, wasn't it? That was back in show 3, which seems like a very long time ago now. So I'm glad that you brought that one up. If anyone's missed it, if you want to know what to do and check out some of Paul's research, then head back to show 3. All really good takeaways, Ben. Thank you for that. So let me ask you this. If you could choose someone for us to interview, who would it be and what would you ask?
Topic of the day, maybe Donald Trump. maybe just for a laugh, who knows? Look, there's so many knowledgeable people in our industry that I'd love you guys to interview, but someone I would want to request, I should say, is a guy from Stanford University. He's a professor and his name's BJ Fogg. I've been following him recently in his research for the last 3 months, and he's changed the way I perceive our fitness business. Basically, he's a behavioural specialist, and he's developed a model which has so many applications to the fitness industry, specifically unlocking the mystery of how to build fitness habits for our members. His research showing the connection between motivation and the ability to do something is fascinating, and I'm pretty sure it's something that our whole industry can really benefit from.
Hey, Tribe, when I recorded this interview with Ben, I had no idea that we would end up also interviewing Dr. Sherry Pagano for today's show. So I think Ben must have been onto something when he suggested BJ Fogg as a future guest. He actually has a fascinating website. So if you're keen to check it out, I've added the link in today's show notes. And if you're also interested for us to go deeper into this area of human behavior and creating habits in relation to how it can help your fitness business, then make sure you let me know by emailing me at chantal@fitnessbusinesspodcast.com or leave a comment on Facebook. Now, let's get back to Ben. Excellent. Hey, Ben, thank you so much for coming on the show today and giving us a bit of your insights into your love of podcasts and our fitness business podcast. We really appreciate you being a listener, and I really hope you like the interviews that we've got coming up for the rest of the year. So make sure you stay tuned. All the very best with your business over there in WA, and thanks so much for coming on the show.
Look, thanks so much for having me. Always love listening to yourself and JT chew the fat. So appreciate your effort that you put in as well.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Ben.
Thank you.
Precore Quickfire 5.
Kaylee Riddle is the owner and director of People Engine, working with businesses to align their workforce actions with their strategy every day to improve performance and profit. Welcome to the show, Kaylee.
Hi, thanks for that.
Now, are you ready for your quick fire 5 questions?
I sure am.
Tell us, why do you do what you do?
Well, I love working with people to maximise performance and business profitability.
And tell us, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
I guess it's in terms of recruitment, and that was, would you employ them if you owned the business?
Ah, that's a really good one. And what's a personal habit that helps you become better at what you do?
Definitely getting up early and maximising the best time of the day. Exercise and fresh air really sets me up with great positive energy.
I think a lot of us can relate to that. And tell us, what's one book that you would recommend and why?
An oldie but a goodie, Good to Great, Jim Collins. I love working with business owners to take their business from good to great, applying that research in a pragmatic and effective way.
That's a really great recommendation. And last but not least, why should our tribe come back and listen to the main interview next week?
Because I'll share real, useful tips on making the people engine of your business work better. And if you learn or are reminded of just one thing that makes a difference for your business, I'm sure you'd agree it'll be worth your time.
I think it will definitely be worth their time. Kaylee, thank you so much for coming on today and joining us for the Quickfire 5.
Pleasure.
It's time for the Fitness Business Podcast Wrap.
Here are my top takeaways from this week's show with Sherry Pagato. She said that people don't always have others around to support them. Therefore, a social media community can help provide some of the support that they need. In a Facebook group or an online community, don't feel like you have to spend a lot of time creating content. Quite often, you can just be the one that leads the conversation. She said that creating a new habit means that you need to create space for it. And she suggested that we work with our clients to anticipate potential obstacles that may get in the way of achieving their goal. Thank you so much for joining me for another week of the Fitness Business Podcast. And remember, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.
Great show this week that you should be suffering DOMs, delayed onset mind soreness, as you are overloaded and that's when your mind is strengthened. You and your business have been strengthened thanks to the amazing support of our premier sponsor, Active Management. Check out www.activemgmt.com.au only if you want to strengthen your business and your leadership. Don't forget all today's links and notes are found at www.fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, where you can also subscribe and never miss a show and maybe win a prize. Next week is another incredible guest with Chantal, so get ready for more Fit Bizpiration.